two subjects today, and one of them is if your scales are out of balance or your scales don't have an obvious change in balance, it's harder for your horse to know the difference between you being pleased with him or being disappointed in him. My relationship with my horses, the scales are tipped way out of balance as far as my love for them, and as far as my appreciation of them, and my affection towards them, and my sense of responsibility or sense of trust I have in them to have responsibility for themselves. And the reason that makes a difference to tip the scales that way than to tip the scales in a kind of a stern way is because when I do express any disappointment in my horses, when I do seem displeased with something that they do, they have the opportunity to truly feel that difference, because I'm not handling them with what I would consider standard hands. I don't walk my horses on the lead rope holding them, on the snap of the halter. I don't walk my horses even with the effort of giving them slack, but then pulling up the slack and holding it like up under their throat latch. People tend to say they're giving the horse some slack, but truthfully, they hold the line up in the air underneath the horse's neck towards their chest. And it gives me the impression you don't trust the horse. So you can imagine the impression it's giving the horse if they don't feel trusted. If the horse doesn't feel trusted, they're always kind of feeling on guard. And if they're always feeling on guard, you can't possibly tell them the difference between being happy with them or disappointed in them, because they feel guarded by your lack of trust in them. I always tell people the best reward you could give your horse is to leave them alone. And then if you do have time, which I hope everybody does, because this is why we're in the world of horses, is spend some time just being affectionate with them, just letting them know how much you appreciate them, just letting them know how much you adore them and cherish them in your experience. Because when you do that, and you do enough of that, when they do something to disappoint you, and you show them the difference in your tone and body language or whatever, your horse is going to know the difference. They're going to be able to know the difference, and of course they're going to be able to ascertain which person they like better, the one that's happy with them and loving on them, or the person who has a different tone or a different posture. I don't ever have to physically discipline my horses. I just can give them a disappointment in my voice or a disappointment in my body language, and they shake right up. They recognize what they've done is not pleasing to me, and they want very badly to please me. So I don't ever really have to get after my horses, if you will. And that's because my scales are balanced or off balance, I should say, but on the trusting and affection side. And there's a problem with having the balance skipped or tipped way wrong too, meaning, too much to the love side and nothing to the disciplinarian side, because then your horse walks all over you. Understandably there, if you think that all you have to do is give them carrots to teach them how to be your best friend, well, no, that's not going to be an effective way to teach your horse either. And then when you're disappointed in them, if all you ever do is give them treats, when you act disappointed in them, what's going to happen is they're going to actually say, oh yeah, I think I deserve that. And you're going to find pushy horses. You're not going to create respect and balance there. You're going to create pushiness and demandingness. But if your scales are really tipped in, affection and approval and trust, and then when they do something that you don't approve of, or you do something that they do something that disappoints you, your tone can very, very easily be all you need to let them know, and they'll want very badly to have that pleasant tone, have that trusting tone, have that loving tone. They'll learn that that is something to strive for. They'll learn to want that side of you to be a part of their experience, as opposed to like a very active person who's always, touching them or pushing on them. Like when you lead a horse that crowds your space, and you don't teach them about personal space, but every time you walk with them, you walk with your hand against their neck to kind of brace them away from you. Well, all you do is you teach them to brace against you. All you do is you teach them to lean against you. If you could just walk without having to do that, then you wouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So clearly it's not effective if you have to walk with your horse always that way. Now, if my horse crowded me, and even if he did it unknowingly, if I gave him a tone to say, you're in my space, and this is disappointing me that you are not respecting my space, it would only take a tone to correct that. It wouldn't require me to get after him. It wouldn't require me to push on him or slap on him or do anything, or even keep a steady feel of keeping him out of my personal space. I would be able to just express to him that I'm disappointed in him, and he would want to change it. And that's just it too. He would want to change it. He would want to change it. That's the point that I'm trying to make, is if you treat your horses with a lot of love and respect and appreciation, they want to do good for you. If they recognize they've disappointed you, they want to change that. They don't want to disappoint you. If you ever watch, even in dogs, like they're a totally different species, but even in dogs, like when a dog snaps at another dog, you'll see that the one that got snapped at will get in a lower posture and wag its more like the tip of its tail than the whole tail, and get right under the dog that snapped and try to lick its mouth, like begging for forgiveness, apologizing and looking to please the dog who was just mad. Horses do that too, they not to that much of it. I mean, that was just that's probably a body language thing that people have seen, so that's why I used the dog example, because horses don't, they don't cuddle up and stuff like that like dogs do. But like my horse, if I yell at him, I'm speaking of Ritz, if I yell at him, if I have to actually yell at him, he will tuck his head into my chest in a very apologetic way. It'll be obvious that he's apologizing to me for whatever he did to upset me. I don't know, I think that's so much better than people who have very active, mistrusting interactions with their horses. If your hand is always active, your body's always active, you're always bracing against them, or protect yourself in bracing against them, they can't tell the difference between your pleasure and displeasure in them. They can't, and therefore they can't find a reason. They wouldn't have a way to find a reason to correct their behavior, because they don't know the difference between pleasing you and displeasing you. Another thing, just on a side note, like a pet peeve of mine is slapping a horse to tell him that you did a good job. I don't think I'd appreciate somebody coming up and smacking me on the neck and think that is a reward of appreciation. But I bet if somebody came up and gave me a little scratch in the head, I might like that a lot more. And I might appreciate that and recognize that as being a display of appreciation to me. My horses don't get slapped when they've done something good. My horses get scratched. So if you work with me, you'll know that's the first thing I want to change. If I see you slapping your horse thinking that you're doing something rewarding to your horse, and I know you don't do it with malice, I know you're not doing it to be a jerk to your horse, but It's funny how often we put human expressions and emotions onto our animals, and, you know, we most often say don't, but in some cases like that, like, think about, do unto others as you want done unto yourself, right? Do you want somebody to slap you when they're telling you you did a good job? Do you want that? Your horse doesn't either. Would you want to feel like somebody trusts you, or would you want to feel like somebody's constantly keeping an eye on you, or micromanaging your every move because they don't trust you? Or would that be an environment that would almost be classified as a hostile environment? That's kind of what I'm hoping to kind of like project here, and I know it's like long-winded, but it's like sometimes it takes me a little while to find the right words, and then I'll turn the damn camera off, and then I'll find the right words, and then I'll turn the camera back on, and I won't find the words again, so kind of like running it. But you get the gist of it. Just treat your horses with respect and trust, and the more you show them that, the happier they are, and the happier they are, the more they want to please you. And the more they want to please you, the more they're going to look for those signs of appreciation, and the more they're going to recognize the difference between appreciation and disapproval or disappointment, and they're going to look to remedy those disappointment experiences and find ways to do things that make you happy. Or undo something that they just did, or knock off what they've just, or what they're trying to do. You know, my horses, when they get excited and you know, get being silly for whatever reason, if I say, okay, that's enough, and it doesn't, for whatever reason, settle them down, then I can change the tone of my voice to being disappointed in their behavior, and they'll settle down instantly. So, my horses aren't special. The only thing that makes it different for my horses is that there is a clear difference between my appreciation of them and my disappointment in them. Clear difference so that they know what to strive for.